Welcome to another edition of Diplomatic Channel. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Midweek last week, U.S. President Donald Trump made a proclamation from the White House announcing more countries added to the U.S. travel restrictions. Nigeria is one of those countries with a partial visa ban. The only difference between this and a full visa ban is that if you already have a valid U.S. visa, you can still travel to the United States, even though there will be more scrutiny at the port of entry. The ban takes effect on January 1st of 2026, and it has Nigerians within and outside the United States worried as to the extent of the restrictions and its impact on work and study in the United States. We'll be hearing from Policy Director of the Nigerian Centre in Washington, D.C., Nkechi Ilechie, on what this means for Nigerians living in the United States and those outside with intentions to travel. And bear in mind, the U.S. president had before now labeled Nigeria a country of particular concern and had in July this year imposed visa restrictions limiting the validity of the visas to 3 months single entry. Right now, visa applications still within the system will go through, but it's up to the visa officers whether to issue or deny a visa. If you have not applied before now, you might want to sit this one out, at least until the partial ban is lifted. The new restriction bars entry for Nigerians seeking to enter the U.S. as green card holders or on B1, B2, FM, and J visas. Nigerians who hold visas for business tourism, combined business and tourism, academic studies, vocational or non-academic studies, and exchange programs are now barred from entering the U.S. under the new restriction. The U.S. raised the operations for radical Islamist groups in Nigeria, and the persistent security crisis are some of the reasons for its decisions. It claimed that as a result of the security crisis, the government found it difficult to properly check or verify the background, security, or risk of people coming from those countries. It also states that Nigerians have a high rate of visa overstay in the U.S. From January 1st, Nigerians headed to the United States will or will not experience difficulty entering the country. That's because of the U.S. partial visa ban imposed on Nigeria. The new restriction bars entry for Nigerians seeking to enter the U.S. as green card holders or on B1, B2, B1B2, F, M, and J visas. This was contained in a proclamation by the White House late Tuesday evening. The U.S. highlighted the operations of radical Islamist groups in Nigeria, the persistent security crisis, and visa overstay as reasons for its decision. There are over 400,000 Nigerians in the United States, a large chunk of them found in America's healthcare sector. President of the Nigerian Physicians Advocacy Group, Dr. Susan Ediowe, says the partial ban upsets not just travel plans for many Nigerians in the U.S., but also the status of those living in the United States.
I think there's a lot of disappointment and a lot of anxiety about this issue. I think some of the disappointment, especially within the United States from the Nigerians who are here, is the fact that as a community, we contribute so much to this country. You know, a physician organization, a physician myself, some studies show that over 52% or more of Black physicians in the United States are Nigerian. Nigerian-born Americans who are here, over 65% of them are bachelor degree holders. The Nigerian American household has over, I don't remember the exact percentage, but higher median home income than the United States average. We are a very hardworking and highly educated workforce. So the disappointment is, it's palpable because it's like, well, what else do we have to do? And that's a real concern.
Council member, Economic Summit Group, Dr. Gbenga Adeoye, says the partial ban depicts American economic interests, which President Donald Trump is trying to protect.
The U.S. restriction on 15 additional countries on this proclamation 10949 is basically to protect the United States. But again, one cannot rule out the fact that the U.S. is after something, and that is economic collaboration.
President Trump's partial ban is the culmination of a change of visa policy towards Nigeria. In early July, the Department of State reduced visa validity parameters for many non-immigrant visas issued after that date to 3 months and only single entry. A recent designation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern last month was a reflection of the U.S. perception of Nigeria's security challenges. The Nigerian federal government has been working with American officials to deal with the challenges. They're hoping for good success along the way. Joining me now is U.S. policy expert Nkechi Ilechie. She's in Washington, D.C. Nkechi, thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you so much for having me. It is a great honor and pleasure to join you this day. Thank you.
And thanks for making it. I know it's really cold over there in Washington, D.C., but even much colder is President Trump's proclamation to certain countries here in Africa and to the rest of the world. Some would say that the U.S. government is gradually showing off racist tendencies with the partial visa ban on Nigeria and the full visa ban on certain other countries, the travel restrictions and so on. Why do you think that this action has been taken against a country like Nigeria?
To be honest, I would be very cautious when using the word racism. The US government has publicly framed these restrictions as a part of a broader immigration and national security policy, pointing to concerns about security vetting systems, identity management, visa overstays. And so that is what the US government is using to justify their limiting of the entry for the Nigerian nationals in those specific categories.
Then what does the ban really mean for Nigeria and Nigerians? Because that's something we've been trying to figure out here in the country.
Yeah, so there's so much information going around right now, and even if you check like the official USCIS websites and embassy websites, there's not much information, but I believe that in the coming days you will see more information. And so I will tell you that it suspends the entry in key immigrant and non-immigrant categories, including the tourist and business, that's the B1 and B2 visa, student visa, F and M visas, and then the exchange visas, which is J visas. So unless a person already holds a valid a valid visa, excuse me, it directs reduced validity for other non-immigrant visas. So that means Nigerians outside of the United States cannot obtain new visas, whether it be for work, study, family visits, or relocation until the policy is reversed. And, unfortunately, this does impact students, families, professionals, businesses, and it does create a lot of uncertainty around travel and future planning. But the proclamation does not go into effect until January 1st. So from now till January 1st, if you hold a valid visa, obey the conditions, and then January 1st, 2026, the proclamation is in effect.
So, Nkechi, some people are concerned that there could be more scrutiny at U.S. borders, especially at the airports, even though they have valid U.S. visas. I mean, we've seen with the change in U.S. policy in July, when the validity on the visas was restricted to about 3 months and single entry. Some people said that they had, though they had valid visas, there was more scrutiny at the airport. Some people had been sent back, and there is fear that this could happen again.
Yeah, this is really such an uncertain time. So my advice to anyone that is currently traveling is to proceed with caution, plan accordingly. Right now, there isn't any consistent updates, even on official websites, about what's going on. I know that the president has given officers and immigration officers the kind of like the free will and the go ahead to restrict. And so I believe it's on a case by case basis right now. And so my advice would be to make sure that you are constantly in the know of any updates, whether it be through embassy updates, USCIS website, and even the most recent immigration information is through the White House website. So it's really, which is that is not a typical thing, right? You would see updates on the State Department website, USCIS website. But right now, as far as that proclamation, all the information is solely on the White House website. So I would say that concerning travel right now, everyone should just proceed with caution and plan accordingly.
So if you do not have any valid reason for going to the U.S., if you don't have any, if it's not necessary, that you go, if it's not expedient that you go, you might as well stay back, is what you're saying.
You might as well stay back. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay. Now, this ban comes weeks after the U.S. president labeled Nigeria a country of particular concern. American lawmakers were in the country some weeks after, and both sides said that they're working together through Nigeria's security challenges. Why do you think that that was not enough assurance for the U.S. government?
Yeah. So while there's diplomatic visits and cooperation, with the recent, as you mentioned, the high security dialogues between the U.S. government, it appears to be the U.S. government is looking for measurable changes in specific areas like data sharing, passport integrity, immigration, and insecurity control. Diplomacy is valuable, very, very valuable, but in Washington, DC's calculus, it needs to be backed by demonstrable operational improvements. So simply saying that we are cooperating is just not, in their view, enough sufficient to alter the US policy at this time.
And many Nigerians outside and inside of the US are very concerned about the ban. Some have cited concerns about school, being able to return to school, because I think one of the visa categories has to do with study in the US, the legality of their status as well, because many who seek green cards cannot get that now, thanks to another Trump policy. Some also did not travel out of the United States just because of the uncertainty of being able to be admitted back into the country. What is your advice for people who fall in these categories, the students, those who have on exchange programs, those who have businesses in the US to go back to, those who are not green card holders, and even those who are green card holders in the United States?
So my advice would be to stay informed. The proclamations and policies are changing literally by the hour, and by the day. So stay informed, whether that's through immigration experts, immigration centers. The Nigerian Center here in Washington, D.C., that is exactly what we would do. I am the policy director of the Nigerian Center, and if you reach out to the Nigerian Center in DC, you can go to our website, www.nigeriancenter.com. And we're constantly updating our websites and our social medias with the latest information concerning immigration policies and updates, the proclamation. So reaching out to centers like the Nigerian Center, staying up to date with the US Embassy website. I'm reaching out to the US Embassy to ask for questions, to confirm, because there's a lot of things going around right now. And so going through official means to get updates on status, on validity, visa validity, and things like that would be the best advice that I have for everyone that is worried about traveling to Nigeria, irrespective of your visa process. Reach out to through official means, embassy websites, Nigerian Center is there, and that is the best way you can get most accurate information as official websites are still being updated.
Let's talk a bit more about what the Nigerian Center in DC does. There are lots of Nigerians who want to become citizens of the United States. Their process to citizenship has been cut short because the Trump administration has put a pause on that. The issuance of green cards, the process of becoming a naturalized citizen of the United States. How is the center helping Nigerians navigate through the changing immigration waters in the US?
Yeah, so the Nigerian Center is a national civic institution advancing social justice, cultural and opportunities for Black immigrants. We work at the intersection of legal aid, cultural diplomacy, financial freedom, and policy and advocacy. And so through the Nigerian Center, we actually are opened every Thursdays between the hours of 12:30 to 4:30. And during that time, you can walk in or schedule a virtual appointment with our immigration attorneys. And our immigration attorneys are able to speak with you for free for those that walk in and give you advice based on your current status. And so that is what the Nigerian Center is doing right now. It's confers immigration. On the back end, we are constantly in communication with our friends and our networks at the State Department to get the most valid and updated information. And so if you visit the Nigerian website and you complete an intake form, you should have our immigration attorney and some of our immigration associates reach out to you for whether it be a scheduled meeting with our attorney, some advice, and you can also reach out to us at info@nigeriancenter.org with any questions that you may have as well.
Have you found that there is an increase in the number of Nigerians needing your services under this administration so far?
Yes, absolutely. And that's why we are doing our best on our end. We have a lot of work cut out for us because people want updated information. And so we are constantly in communication with some of our network in the US government to get the most updated information so that we are sharing that information with you and partnering and working alongside the Nigerian embassy to make sure that we are assisting in any way that we can with the most updated and valid information.
Finally, Nkechi, I know that we're talking about visas and, policy regarding visas from the US. For all the other countries that have received either a partial or a complete ban on travel to the United States, do you think the reciprocity will play a role here?
I would say that in particular for Nigeria, right? While reciprocal, that is a diplomatic tool, it deserves considerable careful consideration, right? The most important purpose for this, the most important thing that I would say for Nigeria is to focus on protecting its citizens and its interests and foreign policy objectives. Immediate retaliation, obviously, measures could be harm families, students, and businesses more than it influences US policy. So I would say our focus should be to remain on a constructive engagement and reforms that reduce the perceived concerns while keeping any other reciprocal action option more of a diplomatic toolkit. So I would say that we should stay away from trying to reciprocate and work on reforms, work on engagement, and the US government and Nigerian government working together. I think doing anything reciprocal would do more harm than good, especially when we're considering that these visas are impacting families, students, and businesses.
Nkechi Ilechie, US policy expert and also Director General, I believe, or Chairman, co-founder of the Nigerian Centre in Washington, D.C. Thank you so much for speaking with us. We're sure that many Nigerians will have even more questions for you after this interview.
Yes.
Thank you again.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. So grateful.
Conversations taking place in other diplomatic circles are still very important. Let's check in on a few of them.
11 Nigerian Air Force personnel previously detained in Burkina Faso have arrived in Accra, Ghana. This was made known by the Nigerian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Yusuf Tuga, on his social media handle on X. Ambassador Tuga said the personnel had earlier been temporarily detained following an emergency landing of the aircraft AC-130 in Burkina Faso. He says through sustained diplomatic engagement and peaceful dialogue between the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the authorities of Burkina Faso, the matter was resolved amicably, leading to the release of the officers and the clearance of the aircraft for onward movement. He said the officers were received by a representative of the Ghanaian president, Colonel Larry Gbevlo Latte, Ghana's special envoy to the Alliance of Sahel States, alongside officials of the Nigeria High Commission in Accra and senior officers of the Ghana Air Force. Nigeria and the Islamic Republic of Iran have reaffirmed their commitment to deepening bilateral relations with a renewed focus on trade, investment, energy cooperation and multilateral engagement following a high-level meeting at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Abuja. Attending the meeting were the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry, Ambassador Dunoma Umar Ahmed, and the Ambassador of the Islamic Republic of Iran to Nigeria, His Excellency Ghulam Reza Mahdavi Raja, marking one of the first formal engagements after the Iranian envoy presented his letters of credence to President Bola Tinubu. Ambassador Raja described Nigeria as a gateway to West Africa and a critical partner for engagement with the African continent. He recalled over 5 decades of diplomatic relations between the two countries and expressed concern over the absence of Nigeria's ambassadors in Tehran. He also identified economic cooperation as Iran's top priority in relations with Nigeria, revealing plans to encourage Iranian companies to pursue joint ventures and direct investments, rather than mere trade, and expressed Iran's readiness to convene the 7th session of the Nigeria-Iran Joint Commission holding in 2026. Ambassador Dunoma Ahmed conveyed Nigeria's goodwill on strategic intentions during the engagement and congratulated Iran on the recent discovery of significant gold deposit in the southern region. He assured that Nigeria will intensify efforts for the full implementation of existing bilateral agreements, including the Bilateral Air Services Agreement, as part of measures to further strengthen ties. More than 50,000 Congolese refugees who have fled into Burundi have described dire living conditions at transit points and makeshift camps after escaping violence in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. The exodus followed renewed fighting near the DRC-Burundi border, where the M23 militants launched an offensive around the strategic city of Uvira, prompting civilians to flee in large numbers. It began in early December and intensified after M23 seized control of Uvira on December the 10th. The group announced a withdrawal as a trust-building measure on Wednesday amid international pressure. Congolese officials have dismissed the move as a diversion, with local sources reporting an M23 presence in the city. Mali's President General Assimi Goïta has formally launched the Alliance of Sahel States Unified Force in Bamako, marking a major step toward deeper military coordination between Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger. The ceremony was attended by senior officials and diplomats. General Goïta handed over the official standard of the new force to Brigadier General Dauda Trade, who will command the unified unit. The Malian leader stressed that the region faces not only armed threats, but also what he described as economic and media terrorism. He emphasized that the launch of a joint command post in Niamey and mobilizing battalions under the unified force represents a new phase in the fight to secure the Sahel.
And that's the program this week. Thanks for watching. I'm Amarachi Ubani. I'll see you next time.